Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to lesson 5. In this lesson, we'll learn about the black keys and how they're used to play music in different key signatures. Then we'll talk about arpeggios, a new way to play chords. So, let's get started. In previous lessons, we learned the names of the white keys, found them on the piano keyboard, and saw how they look written on the grand staff. Now let's talk about the black keys. In the first lesson, we talked about how they appear in groups of 2, then 3, repeating up and down the keyboard. Every black key has 2 different names. Sometimes they're called sharps, sometimes flats. This black key is directly above an A, so it's called an A sharp. It's also directly below a B, so it can also be called a B flat. So this one black key can be called either A sharp or B flat. Let's look at another one. This note is directly above a C, so we can call it C sharp. It's also just below D, so we can also call it D flat. In notation, sharp notes are written using a sharp sign. The sharp sign looks like a number symbol just before the note on the staff. Flats are also written on the staff with a symbol right before them called a flat sign. The flat sign looks like a lowercase b. We call a black key by its sharp or flat name depending on the key of the song. We'll talk about keys and key signatures later in the lesson. Now let's talk about the distance between keys on the piano. If 2 keys are right next to each other with no key in between them, like an E and an F, it's called a half step. B to C is also a half step. Even F to F sharp is a half step because the keys are right next to each other. There are actually 12 half steps between C and C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The distance of 12 half steps from C to C is called an octave. There are always 12 half steps between 2 notes an octave away from each other, like G to G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So just remember, whenever you have 2 notes right next to each other, it's called a half step. Now, if you put 2 half steps together, it's called a whole step, like this. C to C sharp is a half step. C sharp to D is a half step. So the distance from C to D is called a whole step. Another whole step is F sharp to G sharp. F sharp to G is a half step. G to G sharp is a half step. So the distance from F sharp to G sharp is a whole step. G to A is also a whole step. And E to F sharp is a whole step. Knowing about half steps and whole steps will help us when we're learning scales in the next part of the lesson. If we play all the white keys in the octave from C to C, like this, it's called a C major scale. A major scale is made up of notes separated by whole steps and half steps. Let's take a look at the pattern of whole steps and half steps that make up the major scale. From C to D is a whole step. D to E is also a whole step. E to F is a half step. F to G is a whole step again. G to A is another whole step. A to B is a whole step. And finally, B to C is a half step. Let's play a C major scale together using just our first finger, starting on C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. This pattern of 2 whole steps, 1 half step, 3 whole steps, and 1 half step will allow us to create a major scale starting with any note on the piano. Let's try it starting on G, remembering the pattern whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Starting on G, 1 whole step up is A, a whole step from A is B, a half step from B is C, A whole step from C is D. A whole step from D is E. A whole step from E is F sharp. And then finally, a half step from F sharp is G. Now let's play a G major scale together. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. We'll learn more about scales in future lessons, but for now, you have a basic understanding of the major scale. All the songs we've played so far have used just white keys, but eventually we'll play songs that use some black keys too. If we play a song that uses a black key over and over, like an F sharp for instance, we would have to write the sharp sign with every F that shows up in the music. Or we could make it simpler by using something called a key signature to show us that all the Fs in the song will be sharped. Key signatures are usually shown at the beginning of a staff next to the time signature. Sometimes you'll see key signatures with sharps, but you'll also see key signatures that use flats. For example, here's a key signature with a B flat and an E flat. So whenever you see a B or E in the notation, you will know to play these as B flat and E flat. We won't get much deeper into key signatures in these lessons, but just remember to always look at the key signature at the beginning of the staff before you start playing a song, so you know if any of the notes are sharp or flat. Let's learn a new way to play chords called an arpeggio. We've learned chords with all three notes playing at the same time, like this. An arpeggio is nothing more than the same chord with the notes played separately, like this. Arpeggios can go up, down, or both up and down, like this. Let's play an arpeggio with our right hand on the C chord using our thumb, our third finger, then the fifth finger, then third finger again. Play along with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's use the same arpeggio with the chords we've already learned: C, A minor, F, and G. Let's play together. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, C, A minor, A minor, F, 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 G. Again. C, A minor, A minor, F, G. This time, hold down the sustain pedal and play the same thing. Try to lift the pedal when you change to each new chord, and then press it down again when you start the next chord. Play along with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, A minor, F, G. Again. C, A minor, F, G. Using the sustain pedal like this lets notes of an arpeggio blend together, but it stops them from overlapping when you change between chords. This can make your playing sound much better, and if you practice it enough, letting the sustain pedal up briefly in between chords will become second nature. We'll use this right hand part to play the song in this lesson. Once you practice these arpeggios with the music and get them sounding good, you can add a left hand part. The left hand part will start on C, then go to A, to G, to F, and then back to G. Let's play that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again. Now let's try putting both the left and right hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you can't play both hands together, first make sure you're comfortable with the parts for each hand individually. Then use the speed slider to slow down the tempo. You can play this part at any octave on the piano. In the play songs section, I start with the part at a higher octave, then move it lower later in the song. Try it in different octaves and play what you think sounds best. When you're ready, move on to the next lesson. We'll learn some more rhythms and a few new chords. Have fun!